Now recording.
Okay, can everybody in TV land here? Okay, give me a thumbs up. Thank you.
I do think if anybody, the microphone is here, that's picking up your sound, but if you're using this, then it'll pick it up louder through the speaker.
If you guys can hear good, I got two people. Thank you, Sue. I have Sarah's phone in Samsung SM. Can you just tell us who you are, please?
Well, Dana West is here from the middle Atlantic Ocean.
Cool. Don't drown on us. Like you.
Okay.
Sarah, can you tell us who you are, please? Unmute. Oh, is it Sarah?
Hi, this is Sarah Webb.
You all set with, we got him on, he's recording. So we are recording. So we do have all our boards here and we have a lot of our members. So we're going to start. This is going to be a short meeting because we're in Dutton Gym and it's probably 98 degrees, maybe 97. So it is a little cool. I attended this. You don't think it's that hot?
I don't think we have a Windham representative.
You do, Rory. Isn't Rory on Windham?
No, Rory is a staff member.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was a Rory.
She is gone. She was replaced by Kate.
Oh, so we don't have, I'm sorry, I lied. We don't have a Windham, but we do have all the West Rivers people. We do have all of River Valley's people. We do have Stratton's rep, and we have Marlboro up there. And we have
Rachel
Marlboro. So we have both of their reps. So I had tried to, go ahead.
I just got a touch from Sarah Webb.
Yeah. That's Sarah's phone.
Hi, Sarah.
So Sarah, we're all good.
Hi.
Al took care of you. He said, yeah, don't let Sarah in for some reason.
Thank you.
So anyways, I had intended to try to get four of our main legislators here. Emily, who represents a lot of the West River, Laura, who represents a lot of River Valleys, and Stratton, I believe. And then our two senators. And I don't exactly sure what happened, but I know we have a lot of vacation stuff going on. So I wasn't able to do that. But what I did want to do is, I don't want to put Emily on the spot, but I want to have a discussion. So I think it was kind of a surprise that anything came out of the session because it looked like everything was dead. And it didn't look like there was enough votes. And then, miraculously at the end, something passed. And it has made some changes, more so for like Stratton and ourselves and Marlboro because it changed tuitioning a little bit. So now you can't pay tuition to out-of-state schools unless unless the student had been there or signed on before July 1st. And then there's some waiting on public schools in Vermont to accept public dollars have some different requirements, but that really doesn't affect West River. I wanted to just kind of get our group pardon?
It does affect us too,
But tuition.
but Windham does.
But Windham doesn't tuition high school, I thought.
But it's not just high school.
Okay, so it's elementary tuition too. Okay, so it does affect Windham on some levels. Thank you. That's why Emily's here, because she's going to keep me straight. So anyways, one of the things I want to do is, those of you that were on the board when Act 46 came in, even before that passed, when it looked like it was going to be a law that passed, we did have meetings with Windham Central, and we had representatives from all our districts, and there was a lot more districts then than there is now. So we then were meeting to try to come up with the best plan, and even though we kind of started before the law even passed, we didn't get to buy in for the first year. There was a 5-year, if you went to some kind of combined school, there would be some money that you would save on your tax rates. And I think we got in on year 2. So we had 2, 3, 4. We had 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of 1. And it decreased every year, but it was a good little break. It was like, I think 8 cents the first year.
Got our two, our 8, 6, 4, 2.
Right, but we didn't.
And
get
we
the
got
10.
150,000.
Right. We got money that the SU office used to do all the bookkeeping, to go to the new system. So there was a lot of good things, but that's old business. So what I wanted to do was, I believe starting fairly soon, the committee's been picked. It's gonna look at districting. And pardon? Friday, and their charge is to come up with at least 3 proposals, up to 3, to present to the legislature in January when they reconvene. So there's gonna be kind of the first step, but they have certain guidelines. They can't just say every district's gonna stay the same. There's size of districts, pupils, so there's a lot of that. I do know that I talked to our one senator from Windham County who was assigned to that committee, and she did want to hear if we had any thoughts. So, but she wasn't able to make it tonight. I guess there was some miscommunication. Our other senator, told me today that he couldn't make it, but I thought it'd still be good for all of us to get together. So if you have any thoughts on districting, please send it to Senator.
So it's Senator Wendy Harrison, who's from Brattleboro, Windham County Senator, and she has been assigned to the redistricting task force. That's why she wants to hear from all of you. So please reach out to her if you have thoughts.
So that's the first step. The second step, I just want to, it's going to affect everybody a little different because, West River has a high school, most of Marlboro, River Valley, Stratton have no high school, so we're all tuition, and we do tuition of Leland, at least in River Valley. We do tuition a lot to Leland and Gray, some to Twin Valley, some to Brattleboro, and quite a bit to Burton. So there are a whole bunch of different challenges because we're not all unified, and we don't know, what's going to happen to our buddy Bob. I mentioned that maybe he should just become Commissioner of Education, but Bob didn't want to do it today. So anyways, I just wanted to see if, again, instead of reviewing the law, because it's all open, there's going to be a lot of votes that are happening in legislature. This study goes through and they make their presentation. The legislature could decide to accept none of them. They could do their own thing. They can change it. And there are some other aspects of the law that are going to go into effect. So what I wanted to do also before we're done tonight is I want to take one board member from West River, one from River Valleys, one from Marlboro, and one either from Stratton or Windham. And I wanted to do a little subgroup that you folks would monitor what's going on and keep track, and you would be the group that reports back. So we'll talk about that at the end. So I guess the first thing I would really like to do, and we can start on in-house and we can go to people in TV land, is, what are your thoughts? What are your concerns? Do you have anything? Do we just let the chips fly where they do? Or should we, I don't know. What do you all want to do? So it's a small group, and it was meant to be for the board members to have a discussion. We do have some public over there. Thank you. And our business manager, but
Have a little statement.
sure.
Everybody wants to hear from me.
Yeah.
It's totally up to. Huh? No, Dan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to quickly say, sorry that it's just me. You guys all hear from me all the time. And I would have loved to have had my fellow legislators thank you for that. We're all gonna curse you in a minute for that because the fan just got turned off. One of the fans got turned off and it is wicked hot in here. So I just want to say right up front, I did not vote in favor of this bill. I voted against it, although it was a little complicated on the 16th of June. There was not a roll call, and that was unintentional on the part of whoever was going to call for a roll call. So, but anyway, I wanted to make sure that everybody understood where I was coming from on this bill. There are some really good things in this bill, and a lot of them I worked a long time. I serve on the Education Committee. I've been on the Education Committee in years past, as Rich just mentioned about Act 46. I was on the Ed Committee when we passed Act 46. I was on the Ed Committee when we passed Act 173, which is our special ed change to the bill. So I have been doing this work for a really long time. And I went into this session focused entirely on trying to find a way to improve our public education system so that all of our students in Windham Central and in Vermont have equitable access to a high quality public education system. That's what I've always fought for, and I will continue to fight for that. But I also went in with feedback from many, many constituents of mine who said property taxes are too high. And we need to find a way to lower our spending. We are one of the highest spending states for public education. And our taxes are very high in Vermont, and we heard the message in the legislature. So it's a long time coming in that we needed to do a pretty major overhaul of our system, not just our governance system, which is what the Education Committee was focused on, but also our education funding system, which for all of you who remember, Act 60 was in like 1997, something like that. And then Act 68 followed that. And that was when we did our last major change to our ed funding system. Most ed funding systems in this country last about 10 years max. Ours has gone well beyond that, and it is far in need of an overhaul. And I do think that the bill that the House passed out of and sent over to the Senate back in March, whenever it was, there were a lot of challenges with that bill, but I felt pretty confident, and I voted for it now. I felt confident that it was giving us the tools we needed to take it to the next step. So I thought the Senate was going to pick up where we left off and make some improvements. And unfortunately, when it got to the Senate, no offense to our senators work really hard, and Senator Nader Hashim is also on the Education Committee, and I stayed pretty closely connected to him throughout the process. And it was just as frustrating for him as it was for all the rest of us watching the process, because there wasn't a lot of forward momentum that was an improvement on the things that we had sent over. In fact, there was a lot of backsliding. So anyway, in the end, the Senate passed out a bill through a lot of ups and downs and compromises, and a single senator working very hard, trying to create a bill that could get enough support to pass it. I mean, when it passed the House, it had, there were some Republican votes for it, but they weren't very much in support of it, but they voted it to get it to move. But it was not heavily supported even in the House. And it was less supported in the Senate until they did their last minute compromise. Anyway, the Senate passed it just so that they could get it to a committee of conference. The committee of conference, if anybody watched it, I'm trying to think of a very polite way to say it was really tough. It was really hard to watch. It was singularly focused for most of the time on preserving independent schools, making sure that the bill did not impact anything, that didn't make any changes to them. They were looking for status quo, but the rest of us in public education were not even a part of that. One of the main reasons I voted against it was some of the things that happened and didn't happen in the committee of conference. One being that they pulled out a whole section. They also removed any seed money that we had put in the House for the school construction aid program, which is what we had felt was really important. All of us have problems with our facilities, and we all need to do work on them. We know that the state is, that I think, Bob, am I right, with 600 billion or something?
Crazy number.
It's a lot of money. And many things happened in the committee conference that were very frustrating. So it didn't pass easily in both the House and the Senate. The committee conference report is an up or down vote in the legislature, and you don't get to make amendments. You just vote yes or you vote no. You can have your speeches, but you don't make changes to it once it gets to a committee conference. And I don't remember what the votes were, but there were a lot of no votes. And there was a lot of frustration. So the first step, and I appreciate Senator Harrison stepping up, but the first step in the legislation, without going into all the details, is, as Rich mentioned, the redistricting task force, which works this summer and is supposed to have a report by December 1st or 15th, I can't remember what. That will present to the legislature up to 3 different scenarios for redistricting our state, our education system. The criteria, I encourage you to read the bill, to see the criteria around it. I really encourage you to watch. If you can, it's live streamed. The first meeting will be on Friday, I think at 9, if I remember correctly, 9 or 10. You can go on the website and find out. It will be live streamed, like I said, and because it's live streamed, it will also be archived on Zoom, on YouTube. So if you can't watch it live, certainly make sure that you do watch the process, because it's going to be pretty intense. Something that's a little different in this legislation that disturbs me, and I'll just say, my focus has always been on education, and this redistricting task force is not led by the AOE. It is led by the Agency of Administration. So the Agency of Administration, their biggest job is budgeting, right? And not education at all. And I actually want to make sure that we're focusing on our students, our education system, and our communities. And the voice we all should have in the process. And so I'm a little concerned about that. We'll see how it all plays out. When Act 46 has their task force, those kinds of things, it's almost always led by the Agency of Education, which of course it should be, because it is about education. Another reason I was concerned about the bill was the redistricting task force when it left the House didn't have, well, when it went to the floor of the House, it didn't have any legislators on it. That was what I supported. There was an amendment on the floor at the last minute to add in 4 legislators, because there was a lot of push from the Republicans to have legislators on the redistricting task force. I did not want legislators on there, first of all, because legislators get to vote on the proposals that are coming forward. Plus, while I've been a school board member for over 30 years and I have some background in education and our system, most legislators don't understand the complexities of our education system in the state of Vermont. And I really wanted to make sure that the complexities were represented on that redistricting task force. When it came out of the Committee of Conference, the majority of the members on the task force, 6 of them, are legislators now. And so the legislature actually has a majority on the redistricting task force, which I oppose but I do really appreciate the folks who have stepped up to do it. And I think we've got some really good folks on the redistricting task force, and they will have the resources they need to do what needs to be done. It's a very short timeline. But the last thing I'll just say about this bill is, whatever you read, this is the bill, you know, whatever you read in this, and this is double-sided, this is the side-by-side, which is what our bill was in the House when it left the House, and then the Committee of Conference, the side that's yellow. All of this is on the website if anybody wants to see any of this stuff. It's huge, it's complicated, it makes some significant changes, but the work really happens next year and beyond. There's a framework here that we're looking at, and I need for all of us to be on the same page and be representing our districts and Vermonters when we go back to the legislature in January. I want us to have the knowledge and understanding that this is complex, that voices of our communities have to play a role in all of this. There's a loss of vote through the ed funding system. It's going to be a foundation formula, which will be money sent to districts. Likely, there will not be votes on budgets, although there's options for having some votes on budgets, but local communities will have less say in what is spent. There will be, if we follow the law, there will be a change in oversight, and look, the districts have the potential to grow significantly. The recommendation in the bill is 4,000 to 8,000 students in each district. There are lots of carve-outs and flexibility. So, you know, I don't know what they're going to come up with for district sizes. But there are also significantly, there are class size minimums put in here, again, with carve-outs. But all of these they have great implications for our system. And I want to make sure that I'm here to hear from you and hear what you want to see. This is not, we're not going to get all the answers, certainly, or even all the questions. But I really encourage you to stay in contact with your legislators, both Senate and House, and beyond. You know, the Ed Committee should hear from Windham Central. Rich was just describing about Windham Central. We are actually a very unusual district in that we have, like Dan's here from Marlboro, they're pre-K-8, you know, but Dover and Wardsboro, you know, River Valleys, they have tuition for 7th and 8th. So we have all these different models. You know, Windham's now closed their elementary school and they are only part of West River District for 9 through 12, 7 through 12, sorry. And then we have non-operating track. So, you know, we have a lot of complexity here. The last thing I'm going to say about this is one of the concerns I have is that while I applaud some of the shifts that have happened, both that the governor had proposed in his original legislation and the final bill, did change some of the access to independent school education. As you all know, there are 2 sets of rules in the state of Vermont. There's Rich knows this really well because he sits on the state board, but there's the rules for independent schools and then there's the rules for public schools. And they're very different from each other. And right now, this bill restricts, puts boundaries on the ability for anybody to actually send kids to certain schools. So there may be some schools that will be some schools that will no longer be able to accept public dollars for educating kids. That doesn't mean they go away, but it's a 25%. You have to have 25% of your student body who are publicly funded in the last school year I think it was as of July 1st. We've already got they're working on the numbers because the rules are different for independent schools. We have to rely on either sending districts or the independent school reporting to us how many kids they have. So we have preliminary numbers for the 2024 and anyway, but it doesn't, it may restrict the number of independent schools that are eligible to receive public dollars, but it may very well greatly expand choice. And that's what I think most people don't understand. They're celebrating that money is now not going to be sent to overseas, you know, to Scotland for, you know, wherever, because money today has, you know, for many years, if you're, Stratton knows as well, if you're, you guys probably know it too. Anybody who has vouchers or tuition, anyone who has choice, people get to choose to take their money anywhere. It has to be an approved independent school, and it doesn't have to be in this country. Now, it has to be within the state, although there's a couple of
Legacy.
well, the legacy are actually not state or federal cross-border districts. There's a couple of them, but other than that, dollars won't be sent out of the state anymore. But if we merge into very large districts, the chance of us expanding choice in those larger districts greatly, the chance of reducing it will be less. So in our district, if we became one district, just say Windham Central became one, we have to all operate under the same model. So someone's going to either lose choice or someone's going to expand choice. And my concern is that it's going to be very hard to take away choice from people who have it. So the option to expand choice is a very real concern for me. And the reason I say that is because I feel very strongly in this public education system that everyone has equitable access to. And we already know right now that not all students, even if they have choice, have the opportunity to take advantage of choice. Many students don't get, even if they live in a choice district, their parents or whatever, for whatever circumstances their families have, they may have to go to the closest school to where their parents work or where they live. And they won't get the opportunity to send their children out of state or to another country or to the really lovely, large independent school. They just have to go to whatever school is closest to them. And expanding that is a real concern of mine. So,
One more thing.
yep.
Can you just talk real quick? There's something I heard, and I'm not sure you know about it. It presents the things, and the legislature chooses not to accept any of them or choose, that would kind of end a lot of what's going on. There was something about, there's like a default that if something isn't approved.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry. So, hey, there was something and I'm not sure of, and I just, if Emily knows about it, if not, we need to find out. I was told that if what this committee presents, the legislature doesn't vote on redistricting, that a lot of the stuff just kind of ends there in the bill, but the things that have already gone into effect will stay. But any of the other stuff that was going to happen after redistricting kind of gets put on hold and it all gets backed up a few years.
so much of the bill relies on the other parts of the bill. I'll just say that. That's why I say it starts with the redistricting task force, which has the charge of giving us up to 3 in the legislature, up to 3 proposals for redistricting. One of them is required to include supervisory unions. The governor's bill eliminated all supervisory unions when he presented his. There were no supervisory unions, there were just school districts, there were 5 of them. But the bill requires at least 1 supervisory union proposal. If they can give us just 1, but they can give us also up to 3, but no more. So they'll make a decision after they spend these months working on it, on how many they send to us. Once it goes to us, we'll in the education committee get to make some decisions about, we'll dissect it, we'll get some updates and understand. But the legislature could choose, like they can with anything, they could choose to reject any and all, and they could come up with their own proposal after that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but many parts of this rely on changing our governance structure, including the education funding formula. So that's one of the reasons why I don't want to spend too much time talking about the details in here, because these details may shift and change significantly depending on how things unfold next year. This committee conference reduced the timeline of the bill by 1 year. It was supposed to be finished in FY30. Now it's FY29. Even FY30 for me felt like a really tight turnaround once we started to understand all of the work that would need to be done to redistrict the whole state and essentially create new governance systems. And we've had plenty of testimony from the Secretary of State's office telling us what will be required to create these new systems, these new voting wards is what they will be. And it's really complicated. So it's a tight time frame. Even with what we had passed in the House, it's tighter now. So I don't want to get too hung up on all the details because I think details are probably going to change significantly. Does that help?
Good. Yeah.
Yep.
So what I'd like to do is, yeah, I'd like to start over there. Let's go around. So Emily did ask that, she'd like to hear your thoughts too, because as a legislator, but also please understand, it's not her bill. She didn't pass it. It was, so let's
Well-
keep it very civil. And then once we get around the room, then we'll go to TV land. So if you have nothing, that's fine. I just want to give everybody a chance.
Oh, yeah, I'm not hearing you at all.
Gotta
Sorry.
be
There's a
loud.
big fan behind me.
It's quite like, but currently, we don't offer, like, we don't have to offer transportation. So as this progresses, like, I really hope transportation
I'm happy to respond to that.
in those thoughts.
So the law today currently does not require
Like,
us to provide transportation, but I don't think there's a school district in the state that doesn't provide transportation. And the idea that it's kind of like kindergarten. We're not required to provide kindergarten either, but I don't think there's anybody who doesn't provide kindergarten for their students. I don't think no one's ever had any conversation about removing transportation. But transportation it's a good point because transportation is going to play a huge role in any redistricted state system. And I say that with the caveat that everybody seems to think that it's rural areas like ours, and we are very rural. Rural areas like ours that are impacted the most because kids then will be on longer bus rides. But I have found out through testimony and witness testimony that in urban districts, sometimes the bus rides are really long. We had one district who told us that there were 45-minute bus rides in the morning in Colchester because, it's all the many stops going from across town and, going to different schools. There's multiple schools. Trying to figure out transportation in our more populated areas is also really challenging. And so thank you for bringing it up. Transportation is really important and it needs to be, it's part of the redistricting task force job to look at transportation as well.
You all set? Go ahead, Drew.
So, clarify, the previously full special legislation, does that include polls around supervisory meetings as well as polls around school leaders? Are those one proposal together?
So it could be a mix. One of the three, if they do three, one of them has to include at least some supervisory units. So it could say, Windham County, you're going to be one supervisor. I'm just throwing it out because we're in Windham County. Windham County, you could be a supervisory union, but everybody else is going to be a supervisory district or a school district, a single district. So I don't believe there's any specific requirement on all supervisory unions or one supervisory union. It's just that one of the proposals, and if there's only one, the one proposal will have to include supervisory unions as part of an option. I know it's pretty vague, but
Is there anything that's going to affect our budgeting process in the fall? So is there anything you're going to have to plan for to leave that budget schedule for the following meeting? Because we're not going to know anything until
I'm gonna look over at Bob and look for his feedback on this, but we're not gonna know anything when our next budgeting cycle starts right off. We're getting ready to start it, right? We all know that because we're all school board members here, and so we're gonna be budgeting for next year without any changes, except knowing that there are proposals for class size minimums and that sort of thing. Bob, I don't know whether you're focused on anything for the upcoming budgeting year, but
No, I mean, I think we're more focused, nothing relating to, I mean, I guess the minimum class size maybe in West River only as a conversation. I can't imagine it being talked about the other places really. Well, I guess actually River Valley's it could be. Because there's one school that is single grade still, but the multi-grade schools kind of get a pass a little bit on that. I think we're more concerned with the federal stuff
right,
and seeing what's coming and not coming.
me too.
And so, yeah, I think that's a bigger question for us. It's not so much the year after.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm sorry. Hold on. There is one thing, the governor borrowing against the general fund to pay down taxes for fiscal year 27, right?
So
26, I thought.
the legislature took the governor's proposal in his budget to artificially buy down property tax rates again. And so that's just,
But that will have an impact for
it will have
FY
an impact
27. right?
on our, yeah, I've been, you've heard me all speak about how I did vote for the bill because it was the yield bill and we really needed a yield bill, and there were a lot of other things in that bill that we needed to support, but artificially buying down property tax rates just kicks the can down the road and makes things harder the next year. And we did that this year again because we had some revenue to do it. And I'm really regretting it because I think things have shifted quite a bit since we voted on that in the country itself. And as Bob said, the federal impacts on us are going to be great. And if our economy takes a downturn, we are not going to have revenue in the future to be able to make up the artificial buy down of our tax rates. So it could mean a significant increase in taxes without loss of lower expense. So I worry about that a lot. And Bob's right to bring that up. The governor proposed the governor proposed 70 million in buy down. We ended up paying 120 million. We ended up buying 120 million to lower property tax rates this year. So enjoy your top property tax rates this year.
Mine were not cut. It didn't
I
seem to
mean,
do much to mine.
yeah. What is
Just so, yeah, sure, are you good?
Good, but yeah, thanks. I just want to say thank you, for doing so all the national agencies to being, back to the budget. It feels like we're going to be building and flying at the same time. So, we've been doing this for a long time. I've never experienced this, seen anything like this. I'm sure you have. I was 20 years ago. It felt fairly simple. And now it's just so complicated at all levels. District, state, and federal. Never even think that so many federal. So yeah, there's no place to put your hand in and how to be still. It's just everything's moving. So thank you for all this.
Hey, Dan, could you hear Al when he was talking?
Just barely, but nowhere near as loud as you, Rich. So maybe if you can swing the thing around, yeah.
So,
I couldn't hear anything.
okay. Al basically just thanked Emily because it's a little more complicated now than before. And Joe, do you have any? Hang on. He's got to, turn it on. Yeah. It was. There you go. Say something.
There, my phone.
So nothing, there's just a switch here and it's up.
There it is.
There you
It
go.
is.
We hear you.
Right.
Hold it right up.
So hang on, just say testing.
Testing.
Dan, can you hear that?
Not as loud as you talking, Rich.
Say testing loud.
Testing. Come on, Dan.
Is it going to the mic or is the audio going?
I think it's going through.
No, it goes
computer.
through this, but we were hoping that speaker,
Project it more.
Ask it.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's okay. We'll just turn up our laptops while other people are talking.
We all need to talk really loud, sorry.
Talk
Yeah.
loud.
It was even hard to hear Drew from here and
Yeah.
Emily was further away. So go ahead.
Yeah, it was hard. Just, I agree with Al. It's like, you know, it's not even building the plane while you're flying it. It's like you're getting design changes in the air. I mean, you know, the task force is gonna come with the proposals in December, and we're gonna start budgeting in September or October, and we won't know, and then we still don't know because they're gonna make changes. And I think what you were saying already, if your focus is right on, you know, keep as much of our voices in this as you can. I mean, obviously, there are going to be changes. We're not gonna have, you know, 170 school boards and, you know, 5,000 school board members anymore. It's gonna change, and that's okay. But while it's going through those changes, we just have to try and preserve the input from, you know, the local level. It will change, but those are important things. And, you know, we're just gonna have to stay informed and keep asking questions as answers come, and so that we understand what we're dealing with as it progresses, I think. Good.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go around the table and Melissa from Stratton. So Melissa's the new chair up in Stratton. Allison had to resign, you know, had Allison around for a long time. It's a. So,
My bad. But I just wanted to clarify, so that Wendy is the person we can talk to about, or just voice our opinions about the district, and where do we find them?
So I'm gonna have Bob send out Wendy Harrison's email address to all the board members. And we're gonna try to find all those links that Emily talked about and send them out too, so people can have that.
So-
That's one of my notes.
So just very quickly, anytime anyone wants to watch something in the legislature, we live stream anytime we are holding committee meetings, when we're on the floor. And then if you go onto the legislative website, there's a link to, well, we're off session, so it won't be to committees and it won't be to the House or Senate, but there will be a link, and we'll try to figure out what it is for the YouTube archive. It is really important that Vermonters have access to the work that's happening through this redistricting task force. So I'm going to make sure that it is up front and center on the website so that people can link right onto it, because I agree with you. Even if you can't watch it live, you should be able to get to the YouTube, and it will all be live streamed.
There's a lot of this. There's a lot of those live stream links that come out in VSBA alerts.
Yeah,
Great.
the weekly update.
There
Thank
is
you.
a weekly, and also when there's a particularly exciting committee meeting going on. I know they were sending out the link, and oftentimes then the follow-up YouTube link where here's what you missed if you didn't go to the live stream, and you can watch it. So if you aren't signed up for VSBA emails, definitely want to be, because I'm sure they're gonna be very active in keeping school board members informed about those.
They will be, and that is the one, or one of the very few good things that came out of COVID. We actually do live stream everything now. We couldn't before.
It's almost like C-SPAN.
Almost.
Are you all set, Melissa?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, Kate?
So I guess I'm really curious on what this, like how this will take shape, and I think we all are. And one of the things that is really feels super important to me is that understand like the impact to families and like what the quality of life is like for families with students in Vermont across the entire state, like especially down here, we're super rural. Like I can tell you what my daughter's kindergarten year was like, well, pre-K 4 year was like when I had to drive her to school, had to drive my son to daycare the opposite direction, and then I had to drive 45 minutes to work. Like the amount of windshield time that the kids faced and I faced and my quality of life was atrocious. The pandemic actually did beautiful things for my family, like in terms of putting us remote and making it easier. But like, I'm really concerned about what it's gonna look like for the young Vermonters. And like, if we do go to a more regional model in schools, like, what does it look like for these families trying to make it work, trying to get their 4-year-old to school, and trying to get their little kids, and trying to feel a sense of community? Because that's a big reason why we live here, is like having that sense of community. And like, I know I can go over to my little school in Wardsboro, and I know most of the families there, like, yeah, we have text threads on like people helping and each other. And yeah, I'm worried about losing that community, because that is a big part of education, is teaching kids how to be a like community members and like village. So I'm worried about losing our village.
Thank you. That's really important. Appreciate that.
And trying to keep your family, keep making a living while you're letting your kids participate in after school activities and being able to get them there and get them back. And then if you have to go further, that's a really good point. And that's something you should really make sure that you send to Senator Harrison.
Yeah, our village.
Yeah, I share a lot of Kate's concerns. The thought of transitioning to a larger school district will, take away a loss of local control, as I mentioned earlier. And with that, some of the school limits the classroom limits that are put in place, I think most of us, or many of us, know we can't meet those. And I know there's some caveats of like 3 years, things like that. So, my concern is creating a larger district and not having the votes necessary to get our voices heard will result in school closure, and particularly at the high school level that we're sitting in right now. I know that's one of the trying to maintain what Kate's talking about in the local and the elementary schools, but the secondary schools seem to be more of a focus in closure. So I worry about Will and Gray. And I'm wondering, you mentioned that yes, SUs and yes, Ds. We do have a varied SU, as you mentioned. And so I'm wondering, should we be focused on maintaining that SU because we're so varied, we have so many things. And maybe this task force you're talking about, Rich, we'll talk about that as well. And try to determine what's the best course of action. How best to influence this task force? You can call them individually, but should we, as local districts and as an SU, should we be voting on what we want to be? Because I think in order for this map to get passed, it needs buy-in from all the legislators that are in these towns, right? So how, they're not going to vote for it if the town says this is not what we want. So I'm sure the task force is going to look to us for their direction. So do you recommend that course of action to have local school districts and SUs tell the task force exactly what they want to have?
Yes, yes, and I like the idea of what Rich had proposed for a small group. The feedback from constituents has a huge impact on legislators. There's no question about it. I received an awful lot of feedback on 454 when we were getting ready to vote on the committee of conference report. Not one email or phone call or text message that I got said vote yes. And that had an impact on me. Now, if I thought that the bill was the right thing for our kids and our communities, and I still had a lot of feedback saying vote a different way, I would still vote to do what I thought was the right thing to do for our kids and our schools and our communities. But this was overwhelming, and it's really rare to have that much overwhelming feedback in one direction.
Yeah, I read somewhere where they said none of the legislatures liked it, but yet they all voted for it. So
Well, to be fair, they really didn't. And I mean, it was pretty clear, for us that there were not enough, the Democrats are in the majority. I'm a Democrat. There were not enough Democratic votes there were likely not enough Democratic votes to pass the bill. So to compromise, to get the Republicans to vote for it, they had to compromise with the Republicans, which of course just made Democrats a lot more concerned because there were the things that they were worried about maybe potentially got worse. It's very varied, and that's a high level feedback. But the cost drivers of education really didn't get discussed in the way they needed to be discussed. And that's what my focus is going to be on next year. Special ed. The challenges around that. Healthcare. We all know the cost of healthcare is a huge driver for our taxes right now. And there's so many other things that are playing a role. And so that's why I say when we're moving forward, yes, get feedback on the redistricting piece, but keep in mind what it is that is driving your budgets to go up and why you're saying, I still have to propose this budget, even though it's increasing taxes, and here's why. I mean, I just think if that is what you're making a decision to do, I just think it's really important to give feedback individually. Wendy, she's going to be inundated with feedback. So consolidating it in some way is also very helpful, but I would encourage any one of you to feel comfortable sending an email to Senator Harrison or me or Notter, who's on the Education Committee in the Senate, or anyone. I mean, any of the committees. People sometimes send to the 150 House members and the 30 senators. Whatever strikes you or whatever you feel like doing. VSBA is also a resource for that, and I'll let you speak to it, Joe, because you're on that board. But I know that they will provide help.
Let's let the other people do so.
Yep.
And just something else, maybe, can you give us I was reading somewhere and I noticed since I got on the State Board of Ed, we get a lot of letters on some things. And some people have a very nice, concise 3-sentence thing, and you read it and it makes sense. Other people have 3 pages and I read it and I don't know what they're saying, what they're asking. So what is like the standard? Is there, to really catch your eye, it should be short, brief, or should it have like what you're writing about as a tagline? Could you just
so legislators get a lot, and state board members get a lot, and school board members get a lot of feedback. And the longer it is, the more people will skim it. I mean, I'm just saying. Bullet points are always really helpful. Making it as clear, succinct as possible. Bullet points really do draw somebody's eye to specifics, high level as much as possible. Follow up with or attach something with more detail if you feel it's really important. I'm always telling people, even legislators, you need to cut that in half. Don't even send that the way it is, because no one's going to have to take the time to read it. I tell that to legislators who are trying to reach other legislators. Legislators just don't have time to read 3-page emails, and we get them. And so they're not going to get the attention that they need. And I think it's really important to hear from us. But I don't care. If you're sending a 3-page one, still send it. I wouldn't encourage anybody to send whatever you want, but less is more.
Dan, we're going to be at you, buddy.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Rich. And as Al and Joe said, thank you, Emily, for all you've done for education over the years. Let's see. I got 3 main points to make, and I'm going to save the good one for last. There is one school district, it happens to be Windham Southeast School District, which operates schools with different structures. And so I think that's really crucial, because I know Act 46 intended not to allow that. Somehow they made that work. They make that work. I would like to think that that might be an option for what's coming up too. I know Emily said it's a strict no, but anyway, I just want to throw that out, that there's one functioning school district which does run schools with different structures. I would encourage people to look at the task force report, specifically section 3, which I think is page 19. It kind of lays out some of the things that Kate and Dwight were concerned about. They have to take into account things like geographic barriers, mountains, rivers, population distribution, existing facilities. They have to take those into account. Doesn't mean that they will be carve-outs, what Emily called carve-outs for all of those, but they're important points that people should make, which kind of brings me to my third point, which is what Marlboro is going to do. And we, I think, are maybe more precarious than any other schools in that our student numbers coming in are just tiny fractions of the numbers of kids that are graduating out of our upper grades. We see our numbers just really, really diminishing. We don't know Act 73 or not Act 73, whether we continue to run a school. So we have been talking with people in the Windham Southwest. We've had discussions within our supervisory union. Bob certainly knows that, and we'll certainly have plenty more. We've been talking with people in Windham Southeast about whether we would petition the task force ahead of time for our preferred option. And I think that's what we plan to do. We plan to explore as many different things as we can. We don't plan to spend a lot of time trying to figure out whether the task force is going to listen to us, because that's a wild card. But we really feel like it would be crucial to have a discussion within the community. These are some of our options. What would you like to see happen? And then present that to the task force with the hope that it might have some effect on what happens to Marlboro in the final analysis. We've been consulting with the lawyer as well from Pietro's office, so we know some of the legalities of it. And we're talking about probably not trying to have a special meeting with votes, because as everybody knows, if we have a special meeting, let's say in September sometime, the vote has to be yes or no on whatever your item is. So I think we're thinking sort of straw poll. You know, Marlboro has several choices, none of which look like our ability to really keep our school here going, at least until more kids come around. These are some of the options that we would like to petition the task force relative to. What are the voters' preferences? And then we go from there. But we feel, as I think maybe it was Dwight or maybe Joe said, we want to be proactive to the extent that we can. Put our choices, our hopes and dreams out there, and hope that they might be respected by the task force and the people making the decisions. So that's kind of where we're coming from.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Rachel, you're a super board member. Do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
No, I agree with what Dan said. Pretty much went over that in board meetings with all of us there. So thank you, Dan.
Something?
No,
Okay.
So I was going to try to keep it to an hour. We're about an hour because we had some technical difficulties. I do want to talk about a subgroup of the super board to kind of keep track of stuff. And I've got a committee I'd like to appoint, but we do have some other people on TV land who are board members, but not super board members. And we have one here that's on the board, but not a super board member. Do we want to give them a chance, just express any thoughts they have? And then Bob will kind of follow up if you're okay. So we're going to run a little bit over, but I know Drew did bring an ambulance for us. So if anybody feels like they got to pass out,
We're all set.
Drew will let me start an IB so I can remember the old days and then we'll. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Sarah. Sarah's a board member?
Yes.
Sarah's from.
What's-
Sarah, yeah.
Sarah, did you have anything you would like the board to hear or that you would like Emily to hear?
Hi,
Sarah.
thank you. I don't at this time, but thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Rory,
It's on the board.
not a board member, I'm sorry, teacher. Dana, I know you're in the probably fishing and catching flounder or bass or something. Maybe?
No, I'm on a cruise ship coming back
Oh.
home.
So you probably are
Already
eating.
did that. Already did the Bermuda thing. I want to thank Emily for keeping up the good fight, and I figure we'll just wait and see what this task force comes up with. And if I have any problems, I'll definitely email Wendy on it.
And me, copy me.
Copy.
Yeah, I'll copy you, Emily.
I need to know what you're telling Wendy.
And again, the ones.
Okay.
The ones that have Laura for a rep,
Yeah.
you know, CC her,
Doesn't
and I
it
think,
copy all of us?
who's Wyndham's rep?
Tom Charlton is Wyndham's rep, and then Leslie Goldman and Michelle Goslin are Brookline rep.
Can we add that to that list when we send out emails and just
Yes.
ask CC?
Feels like so, yeah.
I know Patrick Lagrange is a select board member in Dover. And what about Dana? Is Dana
There's a Leland and Gray principal.
principal? Okay, thank you.
Before you, you
I got one more board
Yeah, go
member
ahead.
and then we're gonna go to
Yep.
Bob. Do you have anything you'd like to? Any comments, but you gotta be really loud,
Or come down here and.
or yeah, come here maybe if you don't mind, sorry.
As well. And we don't have these sponsors. Gather. Together, I think it's a lot. But, and I think, and I also see a lot of things that it's very good. In you have thought and thought. And we have the voice, there's no, I think that they are just specialists. Or it's really worried about whether the education going to come after spend this time, cycle. As I see it, feels a little, feels very far away. That was something. See.
Thank you.
Could you recap that really briefly? Because I didn't hear a word of it.
So she, Meredith is with River Valley. She just was elected this year, but she's also done minutes for a lot of the boards for a few years since, who was the guy from Marlboro? Peter, was it when Peter retired, Meredith stepped up. And she's concerned about a lot of people choose where they bought their homes because of the school and or the ability to have school choice in middle school or high school. And then if that gets changed, you know, what's that going to do to the communities and what's that going to, like, I may have chose to move to Marlboro because I really like their 7th and 8th grade program. And if we can't have that anymore, you know, are we going to leave town? Or it kind of affects the community. I think that's where you were going, Meredith. Yeah, Meredith's shaking her head.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
Before you go to Bob.
Yeah.
Can I just follow up on something Dan said?
yeah,
So I just wanted to, Dan brought up the bill. And he even gave a page number, which I think is really important, page 19 of the bill. And you can go on to the legislative website to find this bill. It's 454, Act 73. Now that it's signed, it's Act 73. The school district redistricting section on here is section 3, And it explains all of the criteria around what the redistricting task force has to take into consideration when they're doing their job. I would encourage everybody to, and thanks Dan for mentioning it. I think it's really important for you, especially if you're going to reach out to Wendy, who's sitting on that redistricting task force, get a handle on what the boundaries are, what are the things that they need to be looking at as they're moving forward with their work. I think it's really helpful for anybody to have it.
Section.
That section goes through page 20. It's through page 25, 19
Is that
to 25.
we could scan and send out with the emails that we're gonna addresses to?
This is already linked in the agenda for this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have it.
They have it.
25 is the.
Okay, so everybody, it is in it's linked on your agenda and 19 to 25.
Yep.
So Dan, you nailed that. Perfect. Thank you. You all set? No, well, let's one step at a time. Okay.
Oh, you mean the other legislators?
I think it's gonna be really hard to get people together in the summer. I think, one of the things I ran into was vacation with one person. I ran into a work schedule with the other. Another one wanted to do it earlier in the day, but I said I couldn't really do a noon lunchtime meeting with, the board members usually, or an afternoon meeting. Usually we have better luck at 5 or 6 o'clock. So we can see what we can do.
If I can just say, I talked to Senator Hashim, not Hashim today. He works full-time when he's not in the legislature, when we're not. I mean, he's an attorney who is very, very busy. He really wanted to be here, and I wanted to make sure. I didn't get a chance to talk to Wendy today, but I'm sure she feels the same way. They do want to be here and they want to hear from you. So, but legislators don't get paid enough to live without having another job, and he certainly has another full-time job and in the off session. So
he gets called to court when he has to be in court, when he has to be in court.
We're way behind on our, don't get me started on the judiciary, because we've got all sorts of issues there too.
And I will say, the first time I talked to Wendy, she was really good.
Yep.
She called me back within a few hours and we talked for an hour and a half. I had to get off the phone because my guys were all standing there. So I had 7 guys standing doing nothing for an hour because they could. So anyways, I had to break away, and I wish I could have talked to her a little bit longer. She is very receptive and she really wants to hear people's thoughts in her district. So
she needs to, if I can just say, because she's never served on an education committee. She's never been on the school board. She's not an educator. So she has background in municipal government, but, and that's going to be beneficial because we're talking about setting up new municipalities here. But other than that, her understanding of the system that we operate in isn't the same as yours is. And so she is all ears on what it is that you want to hear. I mean, shit.
okay, if everybody's good, I'm gonna go. Did you have something else? Oh, I can't do that with this on. But Melissa's gonna make it better.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one of the things that people need to be thinking about, as you think about this redistricting approach and whether there's an SU or districts or what have you, a couple of facts just to throw at you. The number of students in Windham County are just under 4,000.
Yeah.
So and it's a minimum-ish, right? It's approximate. Low ball number for the district size is 4,000. It's like, that's the entire county, just to give you that information.
And we have 2 single school districts that actually are 4,000.
Up north, yeah, Chittenden County. So, so there's that. And then the other piece just to throw out there is that, people talk about efficiencies through the consolidation, and so on and so forth. I've only been doing this a couple of years so far, but my take on this is, and just to say, if Windham County was unified into a SU and the districts remained and the boards remained, you'd have one superintendent and one business manager and one director of special education. You would need multiple layers under that, right? I hope people kind of understand that. that if you have a county wide school union with 15 to 20 districts and boards and contracts and support staff contracts, you kind of get the idea. There's a lot. You don't gain a lot of efficiencies. You might save a little bit of money, maybe, because assistant supers wouldn't make as much as a super. But for a district that big, you'd have to pay the super more than regional supers are probably getting paid anyways. So don't think of that as a money-saving approach. When you think about it, I don't think that there's any savings on that. Their savings comes when there's a single district and there's a single contract and there's a single HR and payroll and things get simplified and streamlined. But the trade-off there is you're losing that local control. So like you don't get both. You don't get the benefit of the efficiencies and remain local control. It's either one or the other, in my opinion. And I want you to understand the context of the 4,000 to see a sense of what we're talking.
So you can't have your cake and eat it too.
I mean, the point of the legislation was to transform education to make it better for kids and to be more efficient. I don't know that either of those goals are going to be accomplished by redistricting. I don't see that. Yeah, so anyways, that's where I'm at. I also don't think that you necessarily have to have school closures as a result of that, although the fiscal pressure will be the thing that does that. It's not legislative. The class size piece, the foundation formula, those things might drive a district, either a super district or a SU, to think about closing, but it's not going to be mandated. It's going to be fiscally driven. And my belief is that's intentional. And so that's where you're at. So just think about that. You're not going to have any imaginary efficiencies born out of either model, well, remaining as an SU. And yeah, and you're not necessarily going to get better outcomes for kids either. So I'm not suggesting a particular angle is better than the other, but I just want people to kind of think about that. And again, that's just my opinion based on being around in schools and such for a long time. So
Yeah, so if I could just follow up on what you just said, because what you said is true. There is nothing in this bill that guarantees reduced spending and lower tax rates. In fact, there are some things in this bill that actually could increase spending. One of them is by merging, you need to merge contracts, our staffing contracts or employment contracts. When you merge, contracts, you will be merging to the highest one, not the lowest one. And it's, whether you go all the way, I don't know, but I mean, you're gonna increase your spending that way. So JFO, Joint Fiscal Office, did a fiscal note, which you can see on the website. And that relates to the bill, Act 73. And there's nothing in there that indicates, you use the word efficiencies, and efficiencies should translate into reduced cost, but that's not what the Joint Fiscal Office, which is a nonpartisan organization that gives us feedback on legislation we're passing. It doesn't say that we're going to reduce spending. So that's another reason why I'm super concerned. We're spending a huge amount of time talking about mergers and almost no time talking about cost drivers and what our students actually need, what our children and our families need in their education system. And I feel like if things had not happened the way they did this year, and we had allowed the Commission on the Future of Public Education to complete its process, we might have had a better handle on what those cost drivers are and what we needed to do when we were proposing legislation. Unfortunately, we pretty much stopped or reduced their output in their second year because we were all jumping on the bandwagon on transforming public education. So I think it's a really unfortunate process that we've been through. And now we're circling the wagons to make sure that we're all of our kids and communities are served without really even having the conversations that are so important. What are we going to do about healthcare? Because it is a huge part of what our costs are.
Highest in the country.
Yeah. And housing. I mean, you know, that there's so many other things.
So, and then you said that in your initial thing too, so I think that's important for people to understand that it's like Act 46, I always would say it's about saving money, and Emily would always remind me, it's never about saving money, it's about better education for our kids, so we gotta keep kid focused.
Yeah.
But so that we're affordable, so we can afford to have kids, except for me, I'm having no more. So what I'd like to do is, and I'm hoping that y'all indulge me in this. I'd like to appoint 4 people to be a little subgroup to keep Windham Central informed. And like, if there's something that they see in one of the meetings that they think we all ought to be writing letters about, you know, that they can kind of keep us informed, that they can monitor the stuff through VSBA, they can monitor the meetings. And what I would like to do, if nobody has any objections, is I don't care what you want to call yourself. I do like 454 because that was that Chevy big block that was in the first ambulance I ever drove. Really nice engine. I can remember that. So what I'd like to do, if they're willing to serve, is I'd like to ask Dan from Marlboro, that covers one of our districts. I'd like to have Joe from West River, and Drew, I did ask Drew about that because it is from West River. But Joe is also, and Dan are also our VSBA reps, so they're gonna get it from both sides. I'd like to have Dwight from River Valleys, because Dwight's been very interested in this and been pushing me hard to have some meetings. And then, I'd like to ask Melissa as our new Stratton board chair, because Stratton and Windham are kind of similar, if she'd be willing to do it, and that you guys just kind of, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what? Oh, I didn't think she was on. Windham.
She's the Wyndham rep
She's
on
the
the West River
Wyndham
Oh, I'm
board,
sorry.
but she's not a Wyndham board member. Separate, she's on
Okay.
the West River board.
West River.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was I
She
had,
was elected by the people of Wyndham.
right, but I had a West River. I mean, I don't care if you guys are good with the 5-member. That way each of our districts, but then
Well,
really our
but then
districts
Wyndham
aren't
isn't.
represented. If you don't mind, let me just make a phone call to Abby and just see if she's okay with that, okay? Is everybody, if Abby is okay with it, because I did check with Drew tonight. I mean, I just kind of came up with this
So is that a quorum? I mean, it's not a.
5,
but-
no, because
but-
we have,
But I'm just saying, will people be notified when they're leaving and how will they?
well, I don't,
Very informal.
yeah, I think it's very informal ad hoc to keep track, and if whoever is kind of gonna be the kind of the leader of the group, would just, if we need something, let me
I'm just
know.
putting on my
Yeah,
hat, school board hat, which is, you know, we have to, if we formally set up a group of people
Subcommittee.
that turn into a quorum, we
Right.
gotta warn them,
how many
we gotta,
calls we have?
you know, do all of that, so.
5, 3, 8, 9, 10.
I took, make sure that we're doing it
12.
right.
So we can have up to 5, because we're 12,
Okay,
we're 12, a 12-member board. Right, 5 West River, 3
I'll leave it up to
River,
you.
8
Choose. It's one of-
Stratton has 1. Wyndham has 1 and Marlboro has 2. That's 12. So, yeah, let me just check and then we'll get back to you, okay? I don't think, as long as it's good with them, I think we can go up to 5, and then you guys can kind of figure out who's gonna be the leader of the pack and just let me know. And then that way, and if there's something you think that we need to have a meeting about, we can try to set up a meeting. Dwight, we could try to set up something maybe after the committee meets. And I think during the legislative session, it's gonna be really important for us to kind of keep involved, especially like Drew said during budgeting. Does anybody on the super board have an issue with that, or is everybody okay with that? Dan, are you good with, I didn't get to talk to you ahead of time, but, yeah, okay. Okay, and then I will let you know about that, about being the fifth person. Okay, I would like to keep it,
I was just gonna say, before you adjourn us, I want to say one more thing about cost drivers,
yes,
which is related to task force. If we merge into larger school districts and expand our choice, with, Melissa, is it Melissa? I'm sorry, Meredith, you're Melissa, you're Meredith. Meredith, you brought up about school choice. If we expand school choice into larger districts, there are many families in our districts that don't today have choice, that are choosing to send their children on their own dollar privately to independent schools, private schools. If those schools are approved to receive public tuition dollars, we will end up paying additional tuition costs. I just think it's really important where right now, many people I know people myself who live in my own community who send their kids to private schools, even though they don't have choice. But if my town or my district that I'm a part of suddenly has choice, those folks are eligible to get a payment that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
but on the other hand, some districts spend more money than is allowed under the statewide average. And if you don't have a voting block, you're not going to be able to vote that anymore. So there may be some, there's just so many variables.
I agree, but I'm just saying that is another caveat that people should keep in mind.
And also if with that 25%, I know that on the state board, we approve a bunch of independent schools and we had a huge backlog because of COVID. And at the last meeting, that group said that there's probably gonna be a lot less because the state's trying to figure out that 25%. So there may be even less schools that can accept.
I think it's really important to not get too hung up on that, because I will tell you, I had some preliminary numbers. Just for you to get a sense, this was based on fiscal year 24 tuition data and from independent schools census data, which was provided by the AOE. And if you're assuming age 454 to X73 may limit the number of private schools that are eligible to receive public dollars, but if the rules had been in effect in fiscal year 24, an estimated 201 Vermont students would not have been able to enroll. 201 out of 83,000. 88 students were enrolled in out-of-state private schools, so out of Vermont. Only 88 students. These students will no longer be able to use public dollars to do so. And based on FY24 tuition data, 2,778 students use public dollars to enroll in Vermont private schools. And the 7 schools that receive the most tuition students, 5 of which used to be public schools and 4 of which have teachers in the state pension system. You know, many of our independent schools do, or some of our independent schools, especially the larger ones, are part of the either Vermont NEA or the pension system. Let's see, where was I? 2,250 of those 2,778 students are in private schools. About 87 students were enrolled in 14 private schools that will not be able to receive tuition. 14. Because in FY24, less than 25% of their total enrollment was publicly funded. So we're talking about 14 less schools, and many of them are probably very small. This is preliminary data, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands this is direct from, we have to take The agency has a census process with independent schools, and the independent schools self-report how many publicly funded students they have. The only way to check to see whether that's accurate, I'm not saying they're not accurate, I'm just saying that the only way to actually implement this law is to actually go back to the sending districts and count them that way. And that's not the way they're counted today. So it's a different process that you have to go through. So I think it's really important to understand what it actually means. There's not a huge amount of change here. You know, there's another little nuance that I'll not bother with, but we're not talking about a lot of different schools. We're not talking about a lot of numbers changing. It is significant that students won't be able to go outside the state of Vermont, but only 88 of our students in the state of Vermont were doing that out of 83,000.
Okay, I think I went over a little bit. I promised Melissa's husband it would be an hour, so I lied to him. Bob said his wife came on to check on him because he promised an hour. So I'd like to call the meeting if you folks are all set. I do appreciate you all coming to listen. If you have any thoughts, maybe send them to us. Make sure you send it to whoever your legislator is. And this Wendy Harrison, and we're gonna get that out to everybody and to the people online that are staff members. We appreciate you coming to listen. And you know, if you have anything, send it to Bob and Bob can get it out to the executive committee. And I think at the next executive committee, maybe we set some guidelines and you know see what you all need from us as this subgroup. And we can kind of discuss that because a few of you will be in, you know, Dan and Melissa, at least are on that, do attend the executive committee meeting. So if there's nothing else, I'd love for somebody to say, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
And would somebody second that? I got an update. We do need to make a motion to adjourn and we do need a second, but it cannot be anything else can be discussed. Thank you. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 To everybody, Bob, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Bob, thank you for sharing Bob with us.
She bailed before that.
Yeah. Let her know.